kids, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us for another weekly lesson. So this week we are going to look at the conversion of Saul. So this is Saul encountering Jesus. It's a pretty cool story. So I'm going to be reading for us from the book of Acts that is found in the New Testament. So on my Bible, it is on page 1455. So this story comes from the book of Acts chapter 9, and it is verses 1 through 25. I'm going to be reading for us all the way down to verse 7. So Acts chapter 9, verse 1. But Saul, still breathing threats and murder against the disciples of the Lord, went to the high priest and asked him for letters to the synagogues at Damascus, so that if he found any belonging to the way, man or woman, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem. Now as he went on his way, he approached Damascus, and suddenly a light from heaven shone around him, and falling to the ground, he heard a voice saying to him, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" And he said, "Who are you, Lord?" And he said, "I am Jesus, who you are persecuting. But rise and enter the city, and you will be told what you are to do." So the story of Saul encountering Jesus. Saul, as we know, was an expert in the Jewish law. He did not believe that Jesus was the Son of God, and he was very angry with anyone who believed in Jesus. Saul threatened to kill people who were disciples of the Lord. He would travel to other cities and arrest believers and bring them back to Jerusalem. So I can imagine that's something very scary. And unfortunately today, sometimes that still happens. People that do believe in Jesus or proclaim to live for Jesus are still persecuted. And Saul was one of those people back in the day that was persecuting Christians. Saul learned about some believers living in the town called Damascus. He decided to go there so that he could arrest them and put them in prison. So clearly he was a very evil person. As he walked on the Damascus road, a bright light from heaven suddenly flashed around him. And the light blinded Saul, and he fell to the ground. He heard a voice asking him, "Saul, why are you persecuting me?" What does persecuting mean? So what was that? It was saying, "Why are you hurting me?" And this was Jesus asking him. And Saul answered, "Who are you, Lord?" "I am Jesus, the one who you are persecuting." So although Saul was persecuting the Christians, God is saying, hey, you were not persecuting them. You were persecuting me. You were hurting me. And the voice said, "Go into the city, and you will do what is told." Everyone traveling with Saul were confused. They heard a voice, but they didn't see anyone. When Saul stood up, he was blind. The men traveling with Saul led him into Damascus, and Saul did not eat or drink for 3 days. While in Damascus, God sent a vision to a believer named Ananias. "Go to the street called Straight, to the house of Judas, and ask for Saul. He is praying there. He saw a vision and knows you are coming to help him see again." Ananias answered, "Lord, this man has hurt your people in Jerusalem. He is here to arrest your followers." Because unfortunately, that was the reputation that Saul had. But God told Ananias that Saul would tell Gentiles, kings, and Israelites about God. Ananias obeyed and went to find Saul. Ananias placed his hands on Saul, and immediately something like scales fell from Saul's eyes. And guess what? Saul could see again. It was a miracle. Saul got up, and guess what? Instead of going back to persecuting people, he was baptized. After Saul believed in Jesus and received the Holy Spirit, Saul changed. He was transformed. And that's what happens to us as well when we believe in Jesus. He began to teach people about Jesus. Many who heard of Saul were puzzled because he was the same man who had threatened to kill believers of Jesus. The Jews had a plan to kill Saul. They kept watch at the city gate, but Saul learned of their plan. And Saul hid in a large basket, and when it was night, his friends lowered him through a hole in the city wall. So this is a crazy story, but an awesome story. Saul used to persecute Christians. He used to hurt them. He used to hurt God, because although he was hurting the people that believed in him, in the end, he was hurting God. That's who he was after. But then God blinded him and told him, "Why are you persecuting me?" And then Saul finally repented and realized that God was real, and he was baptized. He chose to believe in God, and God performed a miracle, helped him see again. And then from being the person that was persecuting others, He was now the person that was being persecuted. They wanted to kill him. However, God protected him and saved his life. So we serve an awesome God, friends. Never be ashamed of the gospel. And that's what this unit is talking about, how we should never be ashamed of the gospel. Even though people might make fun of us or even persecute us, God wants us to stay true to him, stay true to what we believe in, to stay true to our faith. And I hope, friends, that you are encouraged by this story to just fight for Jesus and to just be that strong Christian believer. So friends, I've got a few questions for us today. First question is, what happened to Saul on the Damascus road? We know that a bright light came and it blinded him. That light was Jesus talking to him. How long did Saul not eat or drink? It was for 3 days. Why was Ananias concerned about going to find Saul? Obviously, he was afraid because he knew about Saul and his story. He knew that he arrested and hurt believers. How was God planning to use Saul? He was going to use him to tell Gentiles, kings, and Israelites all about God. And what did Saul do after he could see again? He preached and he told people that Jesus was the Son of God. He finally believed. And how did Saul escape from Jewish leaders in Damascus? He hid in that basket, and his friends lowered him through a hole in the city wall so they let him get back in. So friends, I hope this is encouragement to you that God is going to always protect us. And remember, friends, do not be ashamed of the gospel. All right, friends, I'm going to pass you on now to Ms. Elizabeth for an activity.
Hi, Kingdom Kids. It's Miss Elizabeth with you today to do our Bible study activity. This week we're talking about Saul. And a fun activity that I found that you could do is make a little flip book. If you've never made a flip book, you'll need about maybe like 10 index cards if you have them, or a pad of sticky notes work great. I don't have either at home, so what I did was I took some paper and I folded it and cut it a couple of times to make some small little pieces of paper. It doesn't work super great, but it kind of works. So you could do that, but if you have index cards or you have a pad of sticky notes, I highly suggest that more. So what we're gonna do, stack the cards together after you cut them. I cut a couple of pieces to make my flip book. I don't have a stapler at home, but if you have one, what you're gonna wanna do is staple the edge together. So what I'm doing for mine is I just hold it really tight so that I can try to flip it. My paper is also really thick, so it's kind of harder. But if you have thinner paper, it probably will work better, just like with like the sticky notes. But what you're gonna do is take your stack of cards, staple them together, and then what you're gonna do is kind of draw. I just did a circle. You could draw a circle, you could draw a person or something on one page, and on the next page you do it a little bit farther away until you keep doing it a little bit farther away until it's as far as you want it to be, so that when you do your flip book, you're supposed to be able to see. This is really hard to try to do on here. You're supposed to see it move from place to place. So as you flip it, you'll see the circle or whatever you drew move across, and it's kind of cool. So it's like your own little animation that you're making with a piece of paper. So you can use stickers. You could color in with a marker. Like I have a highlighter. If I want to make my circle brighter, I can color them in so I can see them a little bit better. It's harder to see on the recording, just the outline. So you can color them, do whatever you want with them. So then you flip to your next card, and again, draw them a little bit farther away from each other until you have as many as you want. Then look at your flip story, whatever you want to call it, your flip book, and see how your circle moves, or your stickers go from one place to another, how they travel. So Saul, who at the end of the story becomes Paul, encountered Jesus on the road, and his life was changed drastically. So in this, we can see it traveling. So when you look at your flip book that you make, however you want to do it. You can color the whole piece of paper, you can add some designs, but you got to do the same thing on every page. But whatever you want to move, keep it the same. When you use your flip book, you can remember that whenever we travel through life, when we have Jesus in our life, things can change drastically, like it did for Paul. Or when you go from one place to another as a missionary, you have to travel around so you can tell about Jesus. So have fun with it, color it, design it however you want to. Make designs, make fun little animated people to go for your page. And just have fun with it, like an easy, fun, creative thing that you can do at home. And again, if you don't have a stapler, you can just hold it really tight so that you can do it, and that works. So I hope you have fun with this. Enjoy decorating and making your own flip book to remind you about traveling, and also traveling in your life with Jesus and having him walk with you. So until next week, I hope you enjoy the activity and enjoy the Bible study. All right, bye.